Okay, so hello, my name is Marty Windle. Welcome to the SBLguru vodcast. I've got a special guest here in the studio today. He is the Meister, indeed, of AAA examinations, and he's the person you want to do your course with if you want to pass your AAA exam first time. Say hello, Ben.
Hello everyone, my name's Ben Wilson. I'm not afraid of blowing my own trumpet a little bit. If you do my course of AAA, it will give you the very best chance of passing the exam.
Yeah, so we're on a list of don'ts here. So we both teach written papers at the professional level, and there's a lot of commonality between things. We've already done a video, look it up on YouTube, of the things you should do in the examination, but there's also a host of things that you should not do or don'ts in the examination. So Ben, do you want to kick off with some of the don'ts?
Sure. I mean, this is specific to AAA, but I reckon it works for SBL as well. What you have to avoid doing is speculating if points, where you're going well beyond what's in the scenario. Now, you have to take the scenario information and develop it, but if you're kind of going, this could happen and therefore it would be a problem, there's nothing in the scenario that says, I don't know, there's going to be an issue with foreign exchange or interest rates might move or something like that. There's nothing in the scenario about it whatsoever, but I'm going to base a point on saying if it's very unlikely to score. Try to stick directly to analysing the facts that you're given in the scenario. Particularly for AAA, where something is supposed to be an issue, they'll tell you 2 or 3 things about it so that you can draw together those things and tell a complete story. They don't award marks if you're just going off on a random tangent, speculating, starting your points with if.
I agree with that. I think I was taught many, many years ago, because I've been doing this for a long time, is just answer what they ask and nothing else. So if they want analysis, just do analysis. Don't suggest the whole future company strategy.
Actions, recommendations, whatever.
If they don't ask for actions, don't recommend actions, because you're only going to get marks in the scope of the question, and the scope is quite narrow. So stick to what the question says and stop. Immediately stop once you've hit that requirement, because if you go beyond, there's no marks for it. Mine's a little controversial one here for number 2. Don't use the textbook. It's a real controversial one. So
massively for AAA as well. Honestly, burn it, throw it away, or use it as a doorstop, or give it to somebody you don't like.
Yeah, exactly. And you see people on LinkedIn, and this is like the big tell, I think. You see people on LinkedIn, they always post a picture of all their Kaplan and BPP manuals stacked up. So you notice one thing about them, they are untouched. Yeah. The spine is not broken. Yeah. So if you want to prepare for SBL, one of the authors, Kaplan's book has got 1,000 pages in. It's kind of the worst way to prepare for your exam. What you need is good notes from a lecturer who knows what the exam's all about. So I would say don't even bother buying the textbook. Find a lecturer who's going to give you the best notes. On my revision course, I give people the whole course summarized on like 35 pages of mind maps, 35 pages of A4. That's exactly what you need to pass the exam, not 1,000 pages.
Yeah, because these written exams aren't about knowledge, right? So if you've got, so for AAA, the textbook is slightly smaller, maybe 800 or 900 pages for some of the official providers. My notes are about 70 pages in total. Yeah. Because what's in mine is what you need to know to pass the exam. And then we focus on activities that build your exam skills. So we spend our time doing things that help you to pass the exam. If you've got the 1,000-page textbook, your temptation is to read it. And if you're going to read it effectively, what's that, 30 or 40 hours of study? Yeah. Then it will make absolutely no difference to your chances of passing. And it's really boring. Yeah, don't do that.
Yep. Okay. Ben, don't.
So this comes from my experience as an examiner. So when you're marking, you see students' exam answers, and the student is writing a rubbish point. Right? The student kind of you can tell the student knew it was a rubbish point. And the reason you can tell is because they keep explaining it. They keep going. This is a rubbish point. Oh, God, I've not done enough yet to explain this point. So I need to explain it again. I keep going and keep going. And so their points that score are maybe like, I don't know, 2 or 3 sentences long, like that. The ones that don't score are like that. They're enormous, because the student's like, if I keep going with this rubbish point, surely I'll convince the marker that this rubbish point is actually really, really, really good. And obviously, it doesn't convince the marker that. It's terrible in 2 ways. Or time, right? Because you waste loads of time on a point that doesn't score you anything, and you could have used that elsewhere in the exam to score you marks elsewhere. And the other thing it does is it really annoys the marker, because I've had to read through 12 sentences of absolute rubbish just to make sure there isn't like something hidden in there that's actually relevant. Probably isn't, but I've had to read it all. And I'm like, why have you done this to me? Do you hate me? Does the student hate me? Is that why they're making me read this absolute rubbish? And if the marker is having that mindset when they're marking your script, the markers are human. Are they going to give you the benefit of the doubt?
Yeah, exactly. It's marking your points. Yeah, I think the sort of complementary point to that is don't repeat your points. Don't think you can get away with repeating the same points, because as a marker, when I mark the papers, it's very, very obvious that you've repeated the same point. You can never get away with it. It's so obvious. Marker.
It's pointless in ACCA because the exam software, the markers have to actually link up. This point here was that point on the mark scheme. So once you have made a point and it gets linked up to that point in the mark scheme, if you repeat it, the marker, even if they don't remember your previous one because you're clever and you put point 1 and point 6 were actually the same point, when they get to point 6 and forgot about point 1, they get to the mark scheme and they can't give you a credit for it because you've already been given the credit for it. So definitely don't repeat.
I've got a big don't here, and I would say that some lecturers encourage this, but I don't. It's don't copy and paste from the exhibit, right? So I just think it's not a good idea. It doesn't work. It reads awfully in the examination. So copying and pasting from the exhibit, big chance. You're supposed to be writing a report. It looks out of place in a report because it looks really weird the way it's written. And if you're writing a report like that, and it doesn't add any value, copy and paste doesn't add any value. I would recommend you don't copy and paste anything in the examination.
Certainly in terms of scenario information. Because when students do that, it tends to be students who are like, I don't really understand this. So if I copy and paste in a scenario, I'll have a load of stuff that's relevant in it. It's full of relevant facts. I might get some credit for it.
Yeah.
But it's your analysis of those facts that
Exactly.
So,
and also in SBL, I don't know if it's the same in AAA, there are kind of extra professional marks for professionalism. There's a word, professionalism, which is like writing in the right tone. So if you're writing the right tone, you can sometimes get extra professional marks. If you're copying and pasting scenario stuff, then you're definitely not writing in the right tone as if you're writing to a CEO or a manager. So that tonality is important for getting you an extra professional mark. If you're copying and pasting, it doesn't help anyway. It's never good. The only thing you can copy and paste is maybe the question into your task thing as an easier reference rather than opening that box again. But never paste anything from the scenario. And this is backed up by the ACCA as well. The examiners have talked about this. Copying and pasting is just a big no-no. And some lecturers, and again, I'm totally against this, they say copy from the scenario and then comment on it. But it just looks awful in the examination. It just looks terrible.
Why don't you just put it in your own words, put it in your own analysis, challenge it, do something with it, do some analysis rather than faffing about copying and pasting. I totally agree with you there, Marty.
Yeah.
Don't go off topic. Students very often start off answering the question and then they sort of tail off and they start making points that aren't actually answering the question. So if it's asking for a discussion or analysis or evaluation, they start drifting into making actions or recommendations or just going off on a bit of a tangent. It's really important. The way to avoid doing that is to keep referring back to the requirement as you are planning and writing your answer. You shouldn't just be like, I've set my answer plan using the requirement and then I don't look at the requirement again. Because if you do that, you quite often can, without intending to, kind of go off on a bit of a slightly down the wrong path. What you need to make sure you're doing is confirm you are on the right path. So I use the requirements to set up my answer structure. Once I've done a bit of planning, I reread the requirements to make sure my answer plan has stayed focused, laser focused on the requirement. And then when I'm writing it up, I glance back at the requirement again, and I try, if I can, to explain how each point actually answers the question, to bring it back to the requirement to make sure that all of my points score.
Yeah, I was going to say this. If you're a particularly weak student, if you're you've done the exam, you've got 31, and you're really struggling with SBL, one sort of simple technique, and it's not it's not perfect, but you can just use the words or phrase continually in your answer just to keep you on track. It's not going to get you. It's not going to get you the prize.
If it asks for recommendation, say in recommendation.
The recommendation
or if it asks for conclusion,
is
in conclusion, and then you're answering the question.
Yeah. So it's not going to get you. It's not very elegant.
I think it's you, Marty.
If you're asked to evaluate something and it's mainly negative, don't forget to put in a couple of positives as well, because for the ACCA exam scheme, they are looking for balanced. And even if it's like you've got 8 super negative points about something, there is always a couple of points for saying there's always something good you can say potentially. A lot of students, they just all negative.
Just go negatives,
And so you must have a balance. Must have a balance in your answer of positive and negative factors.
Yeah, that works. That's true in AAA as well. And it normally is mainly negatives. They ask you to evaluate the quality of some audit work. It will generally be rubbish, the audit work. So there'll be tons of problems, but there will be some positives. And you get a professional skills mark if you draw out a couple of the positives as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I've got a don't.
Yeah.
Brain dump.
Okay.
Right. So student sees, audit reporting as a topic area and goes, brilliant. I've either learned a load of stuff from the textbook about this, or even more usual, I did a past exam question that looked a bit like this one. It looked quite similar to this. In fact, it was a really similar requirement. So what I'm going to do, because I memorised that past exam answer, is I'm going to write what was in that past exam answer. And if at any point you are brain dumping things you have pre-learned, you're not going to score. Because in AAA, the devil is in the detail, the subtleties in the scenario. So a question might look similar, but because it's a different company with a different industry and it's facing different challenges, and the scenario will be different, even though the question or requirement looks similar. So if you write what was good for the past exam question that looks similar to this, it will score you nothing for the question that comes up in your exam. You have to respond to the scenario. You cannot write things that you've pre-learned.
Yeah, I think people try to do that in SBL with the case study. They kind of go to a tutor and they pre-learn entire answers for questions that haven't even been asked in the examination. And they just memorize them and dump them in their back. We used to call it in Asia, it's like a machine gun. They fire a lot of shots in the hope that some will hit the target. What it should be is a sniper, and just one shot, one kill, and get the points down there. I've got one here. Don't ask if you're a consultant and your professional marks are for skepticism. Don't ask questions, right? You should be skeptical and say. I mean, I was taught this when I went on the ACCA marking course. You almost make it very obvious. I am skeptical of the words of this person because, right? Don't go, I'll ask a question about that. Is he telling the truth? Mark. You don't ask questions as a consultant. You always answer questions as a consultant. So if you ask questions,
you're answering. You are answering. That's your job, right? You're answering. So why are you asking questions? Don't ask any questions in the exam. I completely agree with that. People do it a lot.
Yeah. Don't ask questions.
Yeah. Skepticism is something is in AAA a lot as well. And to score for it, you have to challenge things with authority. So you can't just say this might be wrong. It has to be this appears incorrect because it is inconsistent with this other fact.
It's always got to have a because. Skepticism needs a because, right? Because totally. I'm skeptical because, right?
Yeah.
I'm challenging
and that because will always come from something else in the scenario. Something in the scenario. Conflicting pieces of information.
I'm just going to probably finish on this one then. I would say don't read the internet because a lot of people on the internet, they're just rubbish. They don't know what they're talking about. So especially on Reddit is one where people say SBL is easy, just need 2 weeks work, and it's just common sense and you can pass the exam. But I always kind of point out that the pass mark for SBL is quite similar to SBR. 48 out of 100 people take the exam fail. And there's a reason for that. And probably the reason
people underestimate it.
They underestimate it. Yeah. They don't know, but it takes a lot of effort and exam technique. And the people are going with common sense. I've had one person who hasn't done any work. They go, I'm going to use common sense, and they got like 9% in the mock examination because they just don't know anything, right? Yeah. So don't believe on the internet. Trust your lecturers, whoever they are, and follow what they say.
Yeah, don't underestimate it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so don't underestimate that final don't. So thanks, Ben. If you want to do a course and pass the examination, we've both got courses which will lead you to the exam, but longer courses with tuition and revision, plus really intensive revision courses in that month before the exam. I'll put all the details in the link below this podcast, and get in touch. We're always available on WhatsApp. One thing about both our courses is you're going to get 24/7 support for those courses. So we're always happy to take a message. I'm happy to have a quick chat with you if you want to do a course. And these are the best courses on the internet. So please get in touch if you need them.